Hi everyone, this is Sustainability Connect on Icon Radio, and we are here at the Ecotourism Sustainable Forum 2024, and we have been loving the conversations that have been happening in the panel. And joining us is one of the panelists who was just from discussing a very pertinent issue on people with disabilities and how they can be part of the ecotourism, the ecosystem of ecotourism. So thank you so much for coming on board. You can introduce yourself, tell us who you are and which organization you are representing.
Thank you so much, Wanjera, and it's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. My name is SALLY NDUTA. I work with United Disabled Persons of Kenya, UDPK, as the Chief Executive, and our work is on inclusion of persons with disabilities. We do advocacy to make sure that persons with disabilities are part of the conversation. That's why we are here this afternoon, so that when you talk about ecotourism, sustainability, tourism, persons with disabilities.
Oh wow, that is something that is very important, because half of the time we find that people with disabilities are overlooked. We find that a lot of institutions right now is now when they are remodeling their facilities to incorporate ramps and just sidewalks for people with disabilities to feel incorporated in the ecosystem. But how do you champion for this, especially in the sustainability aspect of it?
So thank you so much for that question. So basically this is about understanding that persons with disabilities are citizens, just like others without disabilities. They're in the communities, they are in society, they are employees, some of them are employers, they have families, they love traveling, they have hobbies, they are part of they want to be part of the solution around issue sustainable development and sustainable tourism. So just having that mind shift that persons with disabilities are among us. You'd find persons with disabilities are also our neighbors, they're our friends, they're our family members, they're our brothers and sisters, etc. So having that understanding and appreciation is the first step. So once you have that appreciation, then you know I cannot have conversations about sustainability without persons with disabilities. So it's all about ensuring that you barriers, whether these barriers are physical spaces that are not inclusive. Let's say spaces, let's say we're having meetings and there are no, ramps for somebody who's a wheelchair user to access, or just making sure that if I'm deaf and I'm hearing, to always provide us some us when we're having such dialogues, so that people who are deaf can also participate. Give their views, can also give me their suggestions as part of solutions, because they also have suggestions. So it's an understanding of making sure that we understand the barriers are really just like persons with disability and diverse. We just need to understand if I'm dealing with a deaf person, or if I want deaf persons to participate in my event, what do I need to do? Then I say, sign up, so that our communication is flawless and there are no barriers. Then, like I said earlier, making sure that where we organize our meetings, people who use wheelchairs or they have other physical disabilities, they're able to work by themselves. Because we don't want this narrative that persons with disabilities are the bad. We want to engage. All we need to do as a society is remove barriers, so that even some of those barriers are attitudinal. Sometimes we, in our minds, we think persons with disabilities cannot do. Then you fill in the gaps. You say, maybe they cannot, or they don't understand, or they are not this, or they are not educated, or they etc. So having that mind shift to understand that attitudes can also be a barrier is important, because once we remove those mental attitudes, then we can begin to reduce. So it's about being intentional as well, and seeking support. Like I mentioned in the panel, often I know in this conversation we can struggle. Maybe if I'm running a tourism company, or I do travel, or I package destinations and etc. own a hotel, I provide conferences, accommodation, etc. I don't know where to find people with disabilities. It's just to know that there's a business case for persons with disabilities in their diversity. They want to travel. Like for us, even as an organization, we do organize different programs, so we require venues. So for us, also our strategy is we seek venues that are accessible, and if you're not accessible, we will support you to become inclusive. And it's also our strategic decision that where we don't see inclusivity in terms of venues, then we will not give you a business.
Okay.
So we want you to approach us and we work together towards it.
What is your core mandate as UDPK? What is your core mandate?
So as UDPK, our core mandate is basically just to engage the government as a duty bearer, so that when it's doing programs, when it's developing policies and laws, and when also it's providing services to ensure that there's inclusivity, that persons with disabilities are included. It's about nothing for us without us. That persons with disabilities must be involved on issues that affect them, on issues of society. So our core mandate is basically democracy, and because we're an umbrella organization, strategically we also build the capacity of organizations of persons with disabilities, our members, where they are, especially those small ones, because many of them are still nascent and they are spread across the country, so that they can also have that knowledge and skills how to monitor their rights and advocate for inclusion where they are. Because Kenya is big.
Yeah, it is, and I love that because this now calls in for stakeholder engagement, where you're not just talking to government, you have different stakeholders to the table just to discuss and promote sustainability inclusion in that conversation of people with a disability. I mean, how do you feel about what is your clarion call to the stakeholders?
So for me, my clarion call is to say inclusion is good for everybody. So let's say when you make a product or a service, or you're providing a service, when you make it inclusive, it's good for everyone. It won't just benefit persons with disabilities, it will benefit pregnant women, it will benefit older persons, it will benefit children, it will benefit everyone. And really, inclusion makes business sense.
Yeah.
It is even cheaper. I just gave a good example.
Yeah.
Often I walk to many hotels and I see washrooms. So there's a male washroom for males, there's a washroom for females, and there's an inclusion washroom.
Yeah.
Why not make both the male and female washroom standard?
Yeah.
So that we're also not excluding. Remember also, sometimes when we think we're being
Inclusive,
we're excluding persons with disabilities.
Oh,
Why should persons with disabilities use a different washroom? Just, it's cheaper if you just made the male washroom and the female washroom according to accessibility standards.
Yeah.
Then everyone can use those washrooms.
That's a very valid point, because that is something I've also noticed up until you mentioned it, that you can be thinking you're including, yet you're actually excluding. And people with disabilities, they have one unit, so it's not male and female. It's just your toilet. So if you can just make the normal when you're constructing, like the developers and the planners should just come up from the ideation to the I love that. I love
That's the aha moment for
that's the aha moment. Yeah, for me, I was like, yeah, by the way, that is what we've been saying. But I love that. What initiative does UDPK support to enhance economic empowerment for people with disabilities?
Yeah. So thank you for that. Normally, we talk with employers because our business is about inclusion. The same way we talk about, for example, youth in Kenya, largely being unemployed, yet they are skilled. The way they are looking for employment, among that category of persons is also persons with disabilities. So we talk to employers and create awareness on how, and support employers to make the workplace inclusive, to make information accessible, because it's a right to have information, and everybody, regardless of whether you are a disability or not, you should access information. So that's one aspect. Speaking to employers. The other thing is we partner with other organizations because we are not experts in everything. So we also partner with the government itself and also with other development actors who are in the employment space to provide skills. So for example, right now we are partnering with the National Industrial Training Authority, and they normally do like skills for people who want to do their own businesses. Let's say you want to do hair and beauty, and electronics, computer programs, etc. So we partner with them so that they also identify learners with disabilities who are interested in these courses. That's something that we are doing. We also talk to employers, different, especially these big employers like Safaricom, ABN, TTC, Coca-Cola, around many, because many of them have graduate programs. We have graduates with disabilities as well. So we also encourage them to make their programs inclusive, and we support them towards making these programs inclusive. And it's a journey we have been on. It's a tip of the iceberg. So there's a lot that needs to be done. The other thing that we mostly want to do is we empower persons with disabilities with soft skills. For example, how to handle yourself in an interview, to negotiate, how to communicate well in an interview, and how to even communicate accessibility needs in an interview process. So that's something that we also support.
I'm pretty sure that in your championing and advocating for all this, there's so many challenges that you face. So what are some of the challenges that you face as UDPK in championing for inclusivity? And also, because right now I think you're fighting for a space not just in tourism, but in every sector.
Absolutely. Yeah, very good question. So the biggest thing that we always get, inclusion is expensive. Oh, you're asking me to build a ramp, it's expensive. But then remember that the law, the building code requires that all buildings that come up, like I know for sure, I think these days, any structure that, where there's a lift, then that lift must have a voice command. I think you'll find most new buildings now will have a voice command. Those that don't have, they're actually doing something illegal, because inclusivity stands for design. And right now the building code was even updated. It talks about inclusion. And the National Council for Persons with Disabilities, which is a government agency, they can come here, and if they find you're not being inclusive, then they can, issue adjustment orders. The law permits them to do that in collaboration with the National Construction Board. So let's start from there. That it's about educating ourselves from the law, and where we need support. There are organizations like ourselves, UDPK, we can support you in terms of creating awareness and understanding about what the law says, about disability etiquette, what do I need to do, how can I educate myself when it comes to interacting with persons with different disabilities. So that we remove this notion that inclusion is expensive. Like the example of internet I just gave, if you just with inclusion from the start, then it's very cheap. You find it's probably costs you nothing to be inclusive when you start with universal design and when you involve people with disabilities from the start. So that's one challenge. The other thing is maybe it's an issue of resources, because also our primary focus is about empowering persons with disabilities. Kenya is big. We don't have unlimited resources to reach all persons with disabilities, but then of course slowly by slowly through partnership with other organizations and also the media like yourselves, you do a great job in terms of creating awareness, and so we also leverage and partner to empower persons with disabilities. So I would say those are the main challenges. It's mostly around attitudes in terms of understanding disability. But let me say, we've made huge strides, because I remember when I started working in the disability space, so many people would ask me, okay, so why do you care? You don't have a disability, why do you care? And it was in 2007. I'm not telling people how old I am. So if I compare then and now, I mean, there's a huge shift. I just said to the panel that I was not the only one talking about disability. There was a lot of experience around inclusion, so I really loved that. We've made huge milestones around inclusion, but we still need to do a lot in terms of educating ourselves and making sure that whatever we are doing, we're being intentional about inclusion. And it's always about nothing for us without us. Just think people with disabilities and parties. Don't make assumptions, just ask. And if you can't find a person with a disability, the best way is to reach the organizations ourselves. We'll be here to support.
I love that. And you just said that since 2007, you've been doing this. So how do you measure the impact of your advocacy? You can say 2007 had 5, now you have 50. How do you measure the championship?
Good question. So one way I measure that is, for example, when I started working, it's all about not many stakeholders even knew about persons with disability, even they existed. So if I compare that and now, there's a big shift in terms of understanding, being able to understand about disability. Even inviting you to be in a panel like this, it already shows you that there's an awareness that there are persons with disabilities that we need to engage, and a first step to do that is to engage and really to have this discussion about inclusion. Then I'll also say our laws. Our constitution, but back then we had the old constitution that was talking nothing about our constitution. Right now, our 2010 constitution, that was promulgated in 2010. I mean, I want to challenge our listeners and all of us, just go read Article 54. That whole chapter just talks about rights of persons with disabilities, how they should be treated, with dignity. It talks about persons with disabilities need to have reasonable access to spaces, educational spaces. It talks about sign language that is recognized as a third language, national language in Kenya, so that's big. So if you've noticed, the government doesn't have any public events without a sign language interpreter, whether there's a deaf person or not, because it's recognized as a language in Kenya, third language, after English and Kiswahili. And then also Article 54.2 talks about that at least 5% of every positions, whether in the public sector or in the private sector, whether it's appointed positions or it's elected, needs to be persons with disabilities. So that's big. That's the Constitution. So the spirit of the Constitution is it really proclaims rights of persons with disabilities. So that's a huge step made.
So I think implementation of it is still in the process.
Absolutely. So we're in the implementation phase, and even if you look now, the way the government works, it uses a very collaborative approach. I'm sure even in this sector, for example, they're talking about tourism. They don't make any laws or they don't introduce services without talking to stakeholders. Same way, when the government is talking about inclusion of persons with disabilities, they involved as the stakeholders and they right from the go. So that's a huge step compared to what used to happen before. Government used to make laws, then they deal with the repercussions. Go on.
I can tell. But being here at the Ecotourism Sustainable Forum, what would you want to come out of it? As UDPK, what would be your call to action for all the organizations present here? Because there has to be a clarion call, not just in terms of development, but also a mind shift. But what else do you want to come out of this event so that when the policy document is being implemented, you can say, how's the champion?
Absolutely. So one thing I've had coming out about in our panel was around nation data. And everyone is like, oh, there's no data on persons with disability.
Yes, actually.
Yeah, there's a huge problem with data, it's true. Because do we know how many persons with disabilities, for example, travel around? But then you find often we all love shifting blame to the government. Yes, the primary responsibility, for example, when it comes to tourism, for example, I assume it's the Ministry of Tourism. They need to collect data on persons with disabilities, how they travel, etc. And I say even as non-state actors, in the different fields, we also have a responsibility to collect data. We can play a big role. Like everywhere I go, to register ourselves in different things. Whether before you're given a room in a hotel, always there's like a form you're given.
Yeah.
You know.
Actually, online. It doesn't have to be on paper.
Absolutely.
Online.
It can be online, but then the important thing, have an indicator on disability.
Yeah.
You could even have, maybe they say name, age, maybe gender, disability. Let somebody say whether they have a disability that yes or not. Then maybe if you want to probe further, as you provide your service, you even approach the person and ask them, so how would you want for me to make this experience better for me? Because of your disability. The person will explain themselves that you'll be collecting data about this person. So maybe if we do that also as players in the tourism sector, we can do a lot to fill the gaps the government has.
I love that because I think right now is when now companies are embracing that small click of, do you have any disability? Would you need any help?
Yeah.
You know, but that is just for people who can say that. People who can say maybe talk backs can also be something companies can introduce.
Absolutely. So talk back features, and these days there are so many open source features. Some meaning open source, meaning they were developed and developed, but they are free. So to use even our phones, this is our smartphones, our accessibility features that are free. So these things we can do that doesn't cost you a lot. And for example, I always say, let's say you're providing a service on 50, and maybe there's no lift. An easy measure for you to do is negotiate to move to the ground floor, and you'll find a big change in that. You'll find more clientele with disabilities really coming. I give an example of Ellie who's moderating our panel, and if you have someone on ground floor in a building that has no lift, then Ellie will come to your service.
Yeah.
And that didn't cost you anything, probably. So easy measures like those ones. It's a matter of connecting people with disabilities as a whole, in the spirit of nothing for us without us. Make sure that whenever we're having conversations about inclusion of persons with disabilities, that they're on the table, that we're listening to them, so that whatever measures we take, whatever resolutions we make, also have their voice in it. And that takes care of accessibility issues, and that we are thinking about inclusion from their perspective.
People with disabilities and travel. Like you just rightfully said, travel data is almost zero because no one is collecting it. But how many, in your understanding, do you have a rough number of how many people travel, people with disabilities travel within a month or a year and experience different challenges when they travel?
I can only give you data that, like for example, that I have as an organization for events we have organized. So for example, if we are organizing a workshop in County B, I can be able to tell you this really have to go from here to here, and that's what we were doing. And part of the training, we had an excursion. So I can really be able to give you that data. That's what I was saying. As people in the tourism space, we can collect that data ourselves. Then in forums like these ones, or we can even go to the Ministry of Tourism and share, hey, certain people with disabilities that are able to serve in our niche area. And in that way, we are supporting government to be able to also collect information.
So, future trends, where do you foresee the inclusivity and people with disabilities when it comes to not just tourism and the hospitality industry? What do you foresee?
So the issue of climate change is now really with us. I mean, the climate has changed. I think that is now a fact. And so I see more opportunities for inclusion. Indigenous knowledge, because also as part of managing the climate crisis, indigenous knowledge is important. Communities have knowledge. And among these communities, we also have persons with disabilities. For example, we have a program where we are working in Narok County. Narok is one of those counties where we have indigenous communities, the Maasais. A lot of them have their own indigenous knowledge. They are really proud of their indigenous culture. And we need to conserve and make use a lot of this knowledge even as we with the climate crisis. So I see opportunities for tapping indigenous knowledge. I see opportunities for training in the climate space, even as we talk about climate justice and all these carbon issues. There are new jargons around climate change and climate conservation. So that's a huge opportunity to involve persons with disabilities, because sustainable development, actually the rallying call around SDGs is live nobody back. And if you're living a segment of the population, persons with disabilities, then you're not being sustainable when you leave others behind.
I love that call to action, because the opportunities are there. And maybe one last question in terms of the recent flooding. The people with disabilities were hard hit, absolutely hard hit. We don't even have the numbers. The data to explain to us how difficult it was for them. And we got the loopholes. We got to know where the loopholes are. Are you championing for not just championing? Are we talking that? Are we talking about it? You know, as in people with disabilities who are tripping and falling in flooded areas because they couldn't either see. I mean, that was crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So the recent floods that we had were, they were very devastating. Of course, not just to persons with disability, but to many Kenyans in those flood-prone areas. Even here in Nairobi, areas like, especially our urban informal settlements, a lot of them have huge problems. Flooding. Actually, even areas like Embakasi, South Sea, these areas that are perennially flood, and we also have people with disabilities there. So for us, how we have been engaging is when it comes to the issue of data, let me see, when you talk to communities, then we have this. They will tell you, in that house is a person with a disability, they were moved, their house was washed away, they lost. So communities have data. Again, I say the importance of making what we do community, like us into the community and talk to communities, because communities have data, they have information. It's all about how we harness this information. So whenever we were talking about to our members, they gave us information. So we have data on persons who were affected by floods, and what we have done is even as the government was providing response programs, we've been engaging with the government so that even Red Cross did a lot to ensure that they're also reaching out to persons with disabilities during evacuation. But importantly, even as we move forward, because now with the climate change, these perennial flooding and droughts are things that will be here with us. There's something called an early warning system. And Kenya has a very good policy on early warning systems and managing disasters. So we've been engaging with government so that because they have structures, not just here national, they have structures all the way to village. Can you imagine that there's an early warning system structure in your local community? The chief is supposed to organize that so that people prepare in advance. So early warning is about anticipating a drought. We hear the weatherman is saying there's going to be a drought. What measures will you take to mitigate so that people don't suffer a lot? So those are opportunities that we're taking advantage and making sure that persons with disabilities are in those spaces. So we work with our members wherever they are, and through our programs to sensitize them around how to engage with these communities and what is to be achieved.
Maybe when talking to the tourism event forum, what are your thoughts? Would you want to plan more use, and what did you feel they needed to do?
I think being my first time to attend this forum, I think it was a wonderful forum. Those are diversity of topics. Just now, there's a very nice topic about role of communities in sustainable tourism, and just the diversity of the topics is awesome. Also, the topic around making tourism accessible for persons with disabilities, brilliant. I look forward to them organizing more of such sessions, and also making them like a training opportunities for training. So you could organize a forum and then make it like a training opportunity as well, so that topics like around inclusion and also the role of communities can be more enhanced because so that people don't say, oh, those conferences that happen in Nairobi. How to make sure that what we say cascades to every citizen whenever they are.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate coming on set, and we look forward to hosting you on Icon Radio, like you have.
Thank you so much, Wanjera and team. I would really appreciated having this conversation with you, and I look forward to engaging more, even beyond what the ecotourism and sustainable tourism. I look forward to engaging you more around inclusion and learning more about how persons with disabilities are involved in development in general.
I love that, because we are champions of educating, so awareness is our key. So thank you so much, people. This is Sustainability Connect right here. I explained it.